Let's talk about Mercury in the ninth house, and let's, as always, begin by understanding each one separately. So this is the ninth house. It is the area of sky that's above your head, but a bit towards the west. And that's what it symbolizes. Above our head symbolizes the way that we act in the physical world, and west symbolizes other people. So the ninth house, which is above our head and to the west, symbolizes how our actions affect other people. So this has to do with our values and our integrity. This is why it's the house of philosophy and other synonyms for the same basic thing like religion, ethics, morals, character. This is also why it is the house of education, because education is the process of acquiring philosophy. And therefore, it's also the house of educators. People that give us the education, that gives us the philosophy, etc. So this is why it has to do with teachers, gurus, guides, priests, elders. It's the house of good deeds because it's the house of how our actions affect other people. So it has to do with being responsible, being dutiful, and being generous or caring. And it's the house of good results or good luck, fortune, because good results come from good deeds. That's the ninth house. Now, how about Mercury? Mercury is basically the planet of intellect. Intellect has to do with codes and patterns. This is why Mercury is the planet of communication, because communication is transmission of information, and communication utilizes coded formats to transmit that information. So languages, words, or numbers, symbols. Mercury symbolizes the mastery of those things. Mercury symbolizes interaction between people and interactivity of things, because that's what communication is, right? So it has to do with our talent in exchanging, interacting, and trading. Mercury has to do with relationships, because communication, interaction equals relationships. So it has to deal with establishing partnerships, cooperations, and friendships. And Mercury is the planet of recreation because in relationships amongst peers, a lot of the times what we do is just have fun. So Mercury has to do with fun, wit, youthfulness, childishness, etc. Mercury symbolizes our ability to learn, because learning is the recognition and understanding of patterns. Mercury symbolizes organization, because organization means how clear you are with your patterns and how much you keep your things in good patterns. So Mercury is very neat and efficient. Mercury symbolizes symmetry, because symmetry means balanced patterns. So Mercury has to do with balance and beauty, two effects of symmetry. Mercury symbolizes dexterity or expertise and talent, refinement, because it symbolizes balance, the ability to stand on a balanced position between two things and interact with the two sides of the things in a very dexterous way. Now that we remember what Mercury symbolizes and what the ninth house symbolizes, to understand Mercury in the ninth house is as easy as putting the two of those together and figuring out where their symbolisms form links. For example, Mercury symbolizes learning, and the ninth is the house of education. So Mercury in the ninth house is going to have to do with education and learning. Exactly what does it mean? You can kind of already figure that out, can't you? You can kind of intuit it must mean something like good education, good learning, good intellect. So really these short seed forms of interpreting a planet in a house are really useful. But we'll also flesh them out a little bit more in a second. Let's first look at the other important thing about Mercury in the ninth house. The other way that Mercury and the ninth house link up. It's that Mercury is the planet of communication, and the ninth house is about educators. It might not be evident exactly how that's a link, but educators are the ones who are providing the information patterns. They're providing the patterns And Mercury is the one that can receive the pattern and decode it and learn it. So this is a big link. Let's flesh out these two things right now. So just as you probably figured out, Mercury in the ninth house is good with learning things. So it actually has an attitude or a nature which is to seek knowledge and behave in such a way that it gains information. Mercury in the ninth house represents a person who likes to learn. They like words. They like communicating. They like talking and sharing ideas. They like going to places where ideas are discussed, like schools. They like reading books. They like talking about books. So they tend to be smart and educated. The other thing with communication and education also reinforces the same thing. These people are good at receiving information and classifying it, organizing it, putting it in the right patterns, learning it. They're good at learning a lot of stuff. And also, a very important thing about Mercury in the ninth house is that they're good with words. The link between the communicative nature of Mercury and the educational nature of the ninth house means they're good with transferring information. So they're good at showing things to people, explaining things to people, displaying things. So you will get a lot of really high quality performers with Mercury in the ninth house because they have a lot of talent in demonstrating something, and that's what a performer does. Now let's look at two charts that actually have Mercury in the ninth house. The first belongs to Tracy Lords. So Tracy Lords is a famous porn star. Is that what Mercury in the ninth house is all about? Not really, but she's a performer, right? And she's showing things and demonstrating things. And also she's pretty intellectual. But why is it that she's a porn star and not a librarian? Well, look at the context of the chart. Number one, K2 is very close to her ascendant in Libra. So a person with K2 close to their ascendant tends not to be typical. And in Libra, they tend to not be sensually typical. Opposite to this, in her seventh house, is debilitated Saturn. Very much opposite to that K2 and very much conjoined to Rahu. So it's quite obvious that the main thing about this chart, the really dominant thing in this chart, describes a person who is sexually non-conventional, like, to an extreme. Besides this, she has the third lord in the 11th house, which is quite sensual. And she has the 11th lord in the 8th house, which is quite sexual. And that 11th lord is with Venus and the 7th lord. So it's certainly quite sexual. So that's the whole context of this chart. In this context of a very sexually unusual person, here's Mercury in the 9th house. So you get a very smart, an unusually smart porn star. Another chart I'd like to look at with Mercury in the 9th house is Richard Pryor, the great comedian. It fits Mercury in the 9th house because he's a performer, and particularly he's very good with words. Comedians are extreme masters of language, because comedy mostly rests upon the subtlety of words. So what made him a master of language as an entertainer, as a comedian? Well, his first lord Jupiter joins his 11th lord Saturn in the 3rd house, which is Taurus. Think about that. The 11th lord is going to the 3rd house. The 3rd house is the place for writing. The 11th house is the place for art, pleasure, talent. So he's getting a lot of talent in writing by having the 11th lord go to the third house and having it become a big focus by very tightly joining the first lord, who's also in the third house, signifying that the main focus is communication. Furthermore, in that third house, everything is being aspected by the third lord, who's Venus. And it's happening from the ninth house, which is auspicious, with the ninth lord, which is auspicious. So you get a person that really understands what words to choose and what words to mix up and what words to put together and how to make things funny and how to say things in a way that people will accept and even laugh at instead of argue with. On top of that, his fifth Lord Moon is in the 11th house, so that means the fifth Lord is probably aspecting the fifth house, and the fifth Lord is in the house of arts. And his Mercury in the 9th house is in a Raja Yoga with Mars, making it very promote him to success, to be a key aspect of what promotes him to success.
If you want to understand the whole context of your chart, the soil in which your interpretive seeds grow, then visit my website, vicdecara.com, and click Readings. My complete chart report explains each and every nook and cranny of your chart and will keep you occupied in self-discovery for years. I also have 2 groundbreaking new reports. The first of these, Your Nakshatra, organizes your active nakshatras in order of their importance to you and presents the fundamental interpretations for the planets that occupy them. The newest report, Star Strength, uses a system called Tarahabala to unfold 90 interpretations of the nuanced relationships between all the planets in your chart, which paints a rich and detailed picture of how your various strengths cooperate or compete with each other. Order these or any of my reports and accelerate your journey to deeper self-understanding.